Hi, are you thinking about doing some traveling and wondering how your Medicare is going to work while you are traveling? That is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. Hi, my name is Jo Hutchison, and I am a Medicare, health, and life insurance agent with Founders Life and Health. And I spend a lot of my time as a Medicare consultant helping my clients figure out how to take their Medicare the best way and how to use their Medicare the best way, tips for actually using all of the things that Medicare provides. So today we are talking about traveling and Medicare. There are lots of fun little rules that Medicare throws at us to, depending on where you want to go, tell you what you can and what you can't do. So let's start with traveling within the United States. What does Medicare consider traveling within the United States? So here's a list of what Medicare considers within the United States. So it would be all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. That is what Medicare considers within the United States. So traveling within the United States, there are 3 different kinds of Medicare that you could be taking. So we'll need to talk about each one. Original Medicare, if you are an original Medicare but also have a supplement, and if you have a Medicare Advantage plan. So let's start with original Medicare. You're traveling within the United States and you just have original Medicare. Here's the good thing. It's treated the same throughout the United States. So however your Medicare is treated in the state that you're living in, it's going to be the same anywhere else in the United States. So you'll be able to see doctor, you'll be able to go to the hospital, all of that will be covered. Same as with a supplement. So a lot of my clients that like to travel a lot, I recommend a supplement too, because for that reason exactly. Because the supplement it's Medicare, it's original Medicare, but the supplement is just kind of filling in the gaps. So your Medicare supplement plan is going to follow you around the United States too. When I first meet with clients and we start talking about what's important to them, one of the first questions I ask is whether or not they like to travel. Because if they like to travel, that's going to be a factor in whether or not we're looking at a supplement or whether we are looking at an advantage. So with a supplement, the supplement is going to pay after Medicare. So it really is just like having original Medicare. It's going to follow you around the country. If you have an emergency or if you have to go to the doctor, you're going to be okay. There are no networks. So it's a lot easier with traveling within the United States. Now, with a Medicare Advantage plan, it's going to get a little bit different. On an Advantage plan, you are going to be, you're in a network with an Advantage plan. So depending on where you live, you're going to have your in-network costs and your out-of-network costs. Now, does that mean that you cannot travel outside or that you can't travel in the United States? No, that's not what that means. You can, but you're going to be out-of-network. So the deductibles, the co-pays, the co-insurance, all of those amounts are going to be higher if you have an Advantage plan. With the Advantage plans, what I would recommend is before you leave town, take a look at your Advantage plan, sit down and look at the coverage and figure out what exactly the out-of-network costs are going to be, just so that you're prepared. If something does happen, then you know what the out-of-network costs are going to be. Some of the co-insurance and some of the deductibles are a little bit higher, so you just want to take a look at that. And maybe if you're considering doing a lot more travel in the coming years, then take that into consideration when we're coming closer to the annual enrollment period at the end of the year. Annual enrollment period is October 15th through December 7th. And at that point, that's when you can move plans. If the Advantage plan that you're in right now is not working out for you, we can look at other things. We can move you around. So think about that. If you're planning on doing traveling in the future and the plan that you have right now just isn't really working for you. But most importantly is to know what you have before you go so that you're not caught by surprise. Okay, traveling outside the US. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. So again, we've got the 3 things. We've got Medicare with a supplement, and we've got an Advantage plan. If you're planning on traveling outside of the US, your original Medicare is not going to cover services. It will cover services in an emergency situation under two circumstances. The first circumstance is if the emergency actually occurs within the borders of the United States, but the hospital that's closer to you is in a foreign country. So say you're somewhere along the southern border or the north border, and it just so happens that the hospital that's closest to you is on the other side of the border, your Medicare will cover you then. The other instance where Medicare will cover an emergency, not anything else, but original Medicare will cover an emergency, is if you are traveling through Canada from the continental United States to Alaska, and there's an emergency. Clearly you're going to need to hit a Canadian hospital. So original Medicare will cover you then as well. Okay, so if you have a supplement in addition to your original Medicare and you're planning on traveling outside of the United States, your supplement should, and I'll go back to again, we need to look at the coverage before you leave town, should allow for emergency coverage. It will not cover regular doctor's visits, but it will cover an emergency situation. And most supplements have a 60-day window. So that emergency coverage will have to, if you need care, it has to take place within 60 days from when you left the United States. So just like with the other stuff within the United States, before you leave town, you'll need to sit down with your supplement and take a look at what is covered and what isn't covered, because you don't want to have any surprises while you're out of town. There are some additional things that you can do if you're going to be traveling abroad, which I'll talk about at the end of this video, just to help add a little bit more peace of mind. But most of the time, your emergency services are going to be covered through the supplement. But like I said, let's take a look at that on your plan before you leave town. Okay, and on your Advantage plan, you're traveling out of the country and you have an Advantage plan. Same as before, we'll need to sit down and take a look at it. Most of the Advantage plans have worldwide emergency services. So they're not going to cover doctor's visits, but if you have an emergency, you will be covered. Just like within the United States, though, you will be out of network. So we'll need to look at the out-of-network costs, find out what the deductible, the co-insurance, all of those things. Figure out what they are so that if something happens, you're prepared before you leave town. Just good information to know. Okay, so let's talk about if you go on a cruise, because where are you if you're on a cruise? Are you in the United States? Are you traveling abroad? It's kind of a little bit of both. So there are special rules for traveling on a cruise ship on what's covered and what's not. So Medicare says that they will cover emergency services on a cruise ship if one of two things happens. So if the doctor is allowed to provide medical services on the ship is the first thing. And the second thing is if the ship is in a U.S. port or no more than 6 hours away, which is a weird little rule, but you have to either be in a U.S. port or you have to be within 6 hours for Medicare to be involved with your emergency services. Just a little helpful thing to know if you're planning on getting on a cruise ship. And that leads me to my last little tidbit. For all of these things, for whether you're traveling within the United States, whether you're traveling abroad, whether you have original Medicare, whether you have a supplement, whether you have an Advantage plan on a cruise ship, whatever, looking at your plan, figuring out what you have is the first step. If you think it's not enough coverage, there is something called short-term traveler's insurance, which basically is additional health coverage that you can purchase for yourself if you're planning on traveling that will cover, most of the time, what it's going to do is it's going to reimburse you for your deductibles, copays, and coinsurance. So we need to find out what those fees will be if you get sick, and then what the short-term coverage will do will reimburse you for that. So it's a good idea to look at. It can't hurt, and it's something to know before you get on that plane or get on that boat or start hiking off into the mountains somewhere. So hopefully this was helpful. And please comment below. Please subscribe to my channel. I put out new content every week on tips and facts about Medicare and how to use your plan. And I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much.